Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shaja and these are the headlines. The coronavirus infections tally in the United States has surpassed 27 million, with the death toll crossing 463,000. Pakistan's COVID-19 death toll has topped 12,000 with 59 fatalities overnight, while the country's caseload has crossed 555,000. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2.3 million lives and infected over 106 million people so far. President Joe Biden says the United States will not lift sanctions to get Iran to the negotiating table. In an interview, he said that Iran needs to stop enriching uranium first to hold talks on the revival of the nuclear deal. Earlier, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said that Iran will only return to compliance if the United States first lifts all sanctions. In Myanmar, thousands of protesters have marched for a third straight day in cities across Myanmar, demonstrating against the last week's military coup. In the biggest city of Yangon, nurses and monks marched for the release of elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Calls to join the protest and to back a campaign of civil disobedience have grown louder and more in organized Myanmar. Haiti's Prime Minister Joseph Jout says his government has foiled a coup bid. Jout said a senior police official and a Supreme Court judge were among the 23 people detained with money, guns, and ammunition. The arrests come after leading opposition figures announced a plan to replace President Jovenel Moïse with a new head of state. And in cricket, South Africa are for 218 for 3 while chasing a 370-run target on the last day of the final test against Pakistan in Rawalpindi. Fast bowler Hassan Ali has taken 2 wickets for the Green Caps, while Aiden Markram remained top scorer for the Proteas. The Green Caps lead the 2-match test series 1-0. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. The coronavirus infections tally in the United States has surpassed 27 million, with the death toll crossing 463,000. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2.3 million lives and infected over 106 million people so far. More on the coronavirus in this report.
The little bit progress that world achieves against the COVID-19 pandemic gets thwarted by new hurdles. South Africa says it is suspending AstraZeneca's vaccine after data showed it gave minimal protection against country's dominant coronavirus variant. Scientists say the strain accounts for 90% of new COVID cases in South Africa. In Brazil's Amazonian city of Manaus, indigenous groups get mass COVID-19 tests as cases soar in the region. Meanwhile, United States President Joe Biden says it will be difficult to reach herd immunity, defined as at least 75% of the population vaccinated by the end of the summer. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said the United States has administered over 41 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. However, top health expert Dr. Anthony Fauci says currently the vaccine demand is greater than the supply in the country.
Well, it's just that the demand clearly outstrips the supply right now. If you look at the escalation of availability of doses purely on the ability and the capability of manufacturing that, it's going to escalate and will continue to escalate as we go from February to March to April and beyond.
In Europe, more than 12 million people in the United Kingdom have received first dose of coronavirus vaccine as well, while the Netherlands has closed all COVID-19 test and vaccination sites after the authorities declared a rare code red warning over devastating snow blizzard. Greek Prime Minister is facing mounting anger over claims that he violated SOPs the very day health restrictions were tightened. Meanwhile, Australian cities of Sydney and Melbourne are on high alert over new COVID-19 cases.
While in Pakistan, the death toll from COVID-19 has surpassed 12,000 with 59 fatalities overnight. The Health Ministry has reported 1,037 new infections since yesterday. The ministry says that the infections tally has crossed 555,000. It says over 511,000 people have recovered from the disease so far. It adds that the number of active COVID-19 cases has topped 31,000. The ministry says over 2,000 patients are admitted in hospitals across the country. Pakistan says India's unilateral actions in occupied Jammu and Kashmir have paved the way for the world to intervene. It has urged the international community to compel India to implement the UN Security Council resolutions on holding a plebiscite in the valley. In an interview, Prime Minister's Special Assistant on National Security, Yusuf, said that India is behaving like a rogue actor. He said that New Delhi is playing the role as a spoiler in Afghanistan and undermining Pakistan's sovereignty and stability. Yusuf said India's relations with all neighboring countries are getting worse under the BJP regime. The Special Assistant added that New Delhi is involved in maligning Pakistan through fake NGOs, breaking international laws. President Joe Biden says the United States will not lift sanctions to get Iran to the negotiating table. In an interview, he said Tehran needs to stop enriching uranium first to hold talks on the revival of the nuclear deal. Clarifying Biden's statement, the United States administration says Iran needs to stop enriching uranium beyond the permitted limits. The president's comments follow demands from Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Khamenei said Tehran's final and irreversible decision is only to resume compliance with the deal if the United States lifts sanctions. Speaking to the Air Force commanders, he said Iran has fulfilled all of its obligations under the deal, but the United States and 3 European countries have not. In Myanmar, thousands of protesters have marched for a third straight day in cities across Myanmar, demonstrating against the last week's military coup. In the biggest city of Yangon, a large number of people, including nurses and monks, marched with workers and students for the release of Aung San Suu Kyi. They flew red flags representing detained leaders' National League for Democracy party and raised anti-military slogans, while thousands marched in the coastal city of Davai and in the Kachin state capital, where they are dressed head to toe in black. Calls to join protest and to back a campaign of civil disobedience have grown louder and more organized. Haiti's Prime Minister Joseph Jout says his government has foiled a coup bid. The coup attempt came after leading opposition figures announced a plan to replace President Jovenel Moïse with a new head of state. In a news conference, Prime Minister Jout said a senior police official and a Supreme Court judge were among the 23 people detained with money, guns, and ammunition. Jout said that they aim to arrest the president and facilitate the installation of a new president. Following the incident, President Moïse said that the plotters aim to make an attempt on his life. The opposition has been calling to pick a new president instead of waiting for general elections scheduled for September. But Moïse has categorically stated that he will not step down until his term expires in 2022. China's top diplomat in the United States has accused Washington of blocking the free flow of technology and information. The envoy said increased U.S. involvement anywhere in the world has brought greater instability. In an interview, Ambassador Cui Tiankai said China was open to all American companies. He said it was unfortunate that technology and information had become politicized between the two countries. He added that Beijing is a firm supporter of multilateral institutions, while Washington was the real source of trouble. He also slammed the United States for inconsistency on the Paris Accord and urged Washington to join Beijing on climate action. United States President Joe Biden has urged Siberian President Alexander Vucic to recognize Kosovo. Biden said this in a letter on the Statehood Day of Siberia. Biden said Washington supports Belgrade in its goal to become the member of the European Union. He called on Serbia to make necessary reforms to reach a normalization agreement with Kosovo on mutual recognition. Reacting to the letter, President Vučić said that Serbia is ready to continue dialogue with Kosovo, but will not recognize it. Last September, Kosovo and Serbia agreed to take steps towards economic cooperation in agreements signed in Washington. The Israeli cabinet has approved a huge deal to buy warplanes, bombs, and other advanced military equipment from the United States. Israeli state media said that the $9 billion deal includes Chinook helicopters, F-35 and F-16 warplanes, and aerial refueling tankers. It said that the finance ministry has opposed the deal as Tel Aviv will need loans from the United States banks to finance the plan. However, it said that the decision was reached after a 7-hour-long cabinet meeting led by Defense Minister Benny Gantz. State media added that the decision followed a 3-year of delay to strengthen Tel Aviv's Air Force, which the United States says Israel's largest military supporter announced $38 billion in military aid over 10 years. The United States has expressed deep concern over continued Houthi attacks on Saudi Arabia. U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price called on the group to further cease attacks on the civilian areas in Saudi Arabia. Price also urged Houthis to halt any new military offensives inside Yemen, which will only bring more suffering to the Yemeni people. He urged the Houthis to demonstrate their commitment to constructively engage in UN envoy Martin Griffiths' effort to achieve peace. This came after the Arab coalition intercepted 5 explosive Houthi drones launched towards Saudi Arabia in 2 separate assaults. In the United States, Republican senators have backed former Donald Trump, calling his impeachment trial a waste of time. This precedes Trump's impeachment trial on charges of incitement of insurrection in the state on Tuesday. The GOP senators argued that Trump's fiery speech before the Capitol riots does not make him responsible for the violence. They termed the trial unconstitutional and a farce, saying it will divide the country. The Republican lawmakers said that they believe the former president should and will be acquitted. The European Union and the Arab League have welcomed the election of Libya's new transitional government. The interim was set up after 5 days of talks in Geneva, Switzerland. The government will be led by Mohamed Al-Menfi as Presidency Council head and Abdulhamid Debihi as Prime Minister. In a statement, the European Union called the agreement an important milestone in the Berlin process. The bloc added that it will lead Libya towards national elections to be held on the 24th of December. The European Union also expressed its willingness to work with Al-Menfi and the new premier in Dibi. Meanwhile, in a statement, the Arab League vowed to support all national efforts to reach a final and comprehensive solution. Pakistan has sent search and rescue teams to locate the missing climbers on K2 for the 3rd straight day. Pakistan's Muhammad Ali Satpara, along with John Story from Iceland and J.P. Moher from Chile, went missing while descending the K2. Yesterday, speaking to the media after reaching Skardu from the base camp, Sajid Ali Satpara said a rescue operation is only possible to search for the bodies. He confirmed the climbers scaled to the peak on Friday and came across an accident while descending. He was part of the search operation, which failed to locate the climbers for a 2nd day on Sunday. News of the missing men comes a day after Bulgarian mountaineer was confirmed to have died on K2. A team of Nepali climbers made history on K2 last month when they became the first to scale it in winter. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Indian government has once again asked Twitter to block more than 1,000 accounts linked with farmers' movement. Twitter so far has not acted on the government's complaint. The latest direction comes days after the center asked the social media giant to block 250 accounts over allegations of misinformation. Meanwhile, thousands of people attend a Grand Village Council meeting in the Haryana state as a part of the protest against the farm laws. Farmers feel the laws will leave them at the mercy of big corporate buyers. Tens of thousands of farmers have been braving New Delhi's winter for months on national highways. while over 175 people have lost their lives during the protest. In northern India, at least 14 people are dead and 150 missing after a piece of the Himalayan glacier fell into the river and triggered a huge flood. The floodwaters burst open a dam and deluge of water poured through the valley in the state of Uttarakhand. Officials say most of the missing are believed to be workers from 2 hydropower plants in the area. Rescue workers are focusing on a 2.5-kilometer long tunnel where they say 30 to 35 people could be trapped. Authorities said there had been no voice contact with anyone in the tunnel as of yet. Sunday's violent surge swept away a small hydroelectric project and damaged a bigger one further downstream. Officials say 25 people have been rescued so far. Ecuadorians are headed for a runoff presidential election following Sunday's vote. Leftist economist Andres Arauz drew the most votes, but not enough to secure an outright victory. The National Electoral Council says a quick account shows that Arauz with 31.5% of the votes. Indigenous environmental activist Yaku Perez has 20.04% and conservative banker Guillermo Lasso won 19.97%. It is still too close to call whether Arauz will face Perez or Lasso in the second round, but his win moves the nation a step closer to socialism following years of austerity measures made more painful by the pandemic. Since the COVID-19 outbreak, different methods have been used to counter the symptoms of the disease. The latest comes from Bolivia's El Alto, where indigenous residents are using herbal medicine to ward off the virus. This report has more.
Before COVID vaccines came to the fore, modern medicine was having a tough time against the virus. But that hasn't stopped Bolivians from lining up to use a steam booth for herbal medicine. They say this pre-Hispanic tradition works by boosting the body's respiratory system.
They free the respiratory tract and lungs from lack of oxygen. All this is to prevent this disease, which is the coronavirus. For us, these medicinal plants are natural and they are excellent for our organism because God created them.
Once inside the booth, they receive a steam treatment with herbs such as eucalyptus and chamomile.
These herbs are for fever and COVID-19. This plant is called Carlosento and this one is called Anahuaya. Earlier, we did not value these plants. However, they have turned out to be very good for treating COVID-19 disease. These plants take away all the fever.
The second wave of COVID-19 has battered Bolivia's ailing healthcare system. With many hospitals pushed to the brink of collapse, pre-Hispanic traditions might be the only option for few.
This year's Spring Festival Gala of China Media Group boasts a record number of dance programs which will incorporate new technologies. More in this report.
To ring in the Chinese New Year, China Media Group will air the annual Spring Festival Gala this week. It will be the biggest stage in the program's history and a combination of 5G, 8K HD, artificial intelligence and virtual reality technologies. The blockbuster program will air live on February 11, Chinese Lunar New Year's Eve, to welcome the year of the ox with songs, performances, comedy, sketches and much more.
This year's stage provides us with very good performance conditions. It is the widest one in the history of the Spring Festival Gala and also the most beautiful. It is 30 meters wide. Such a large stage can usually only be seen in stadiums.
Following tradition, the gala will highlight some of the most important events from the past year.
We are striving for an emotional expression this year. For example, with works on poverty alleviation, welcoming the centenary of the founding of the Communist Party of China and battling the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as song programs, we hope to touch audience members' hearts, bring them warmth, or make them think.
On New Year's Eve, more than 600 media outlets from over 170 countries and regions will broadcast and report the show. The gala, also known as Chanwen in Chinese, has been broadcast live annually since 1983. It is the most important cultural symbol of the Chinese Lunar New Year and the most watched television program in the world.
It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.